record this. So we are recording this for internal purposes. Although this isn't a session as such, this is part of our lunchtime takeaways. It's quite interesting about LinkedIn, and obviously that's the reason why you are all here, is looking at LinkedIn, not just another social media, which becomes quite an interesting perspective. I presume you are all on LinkedIn. Again, I just struggle sometimes with these. Don't know what it's doing. So if you want to, I don't know if you've used Zoom before, you've got a little button called reaction. So if you're all on LinkedIn, if you just want to click it and give a thumbs up that you're all on LinkedIn, thank you, Sally. So everybody is on LinkedIn. Okay. And then me too, as you will see in a minute. Now, it's interesting, as I'm on LinkedIn, I've been on it for a while. I don't really use it because I don't necessarily need to be using it in terms of networking and getting business. I do update it, and I've sort of, but sporadically. And I think one of the most interesting things, I know when I was going for a job once, I made an application and they just said, oh, just send me your LinkedIn profile. And of course, then I just went into massive panic mode and then just quickly went in and updated my LinkedIn without really thinking too much about it. And over the past couple of months, I've been doing sort of little training courses, helping students who are still at university, looking at how they update their personal branding, their personal profile, of which it goes into LinkedIn and looking at them updating their LinkedIn. And that's why it becomes an interesting argument, because I know I've got some of the students and some of my networks are actually working in recruitment. I actually have a background in recruitment. I used to work for one of the bigger nationals in terms of high street recruitment agencies. So I know a little bit about recruiting both temporary and permanent jobs in the executive recruitment and so on. What becomes really interesting now is that you're getting to the point where, what's a CV, curriculum vitae or resume? Is it still being used, or are people just using LinkedIn? And people that I know that are still working in recruitment are turning around and saying recruitment is now a tool, it's not a competitor. Because like everything, and you'll see some of the statistics that I'll put forward, is that it becomes really interesting where we turn around and say, this is a great tool for recruiters. I mean, back in the day, I used to have to put things on the window outside the office, or put in an advert every week in the local newspapers in order to sort of troll for applicants coming in. And what was really interesting, and back in the day, you would literally put an advert that was so vague that, because the whole idea is you didn't want one person, you wanted 50 applicants to come in, because then that created your database of applicants, of then which you could then work on and find positions, because obviously they're looking for a new job. They didn't necessarily know what exactly that job was about, but you picked it, you wrote it to attract the most amount of applicants rather than the best applicant. And of course, that's all changing now. It's a bit like sort of the Facebook ads and the search. And that's why we're looking at LinkedIn as being a really interesting way of where you can promote yourself as part of your personal branding, but it's also a way of you getting discovered. So even if you're not necessarily looking actively for a job, you're actually putting it out there, and then hopefully you're going to be headhunted by a recruiter that's going to come in and make you feel really warm and fuzzy by saying, oh, you're a fabulous person, I've got a brilliant company for you to work with, and all of a sudden you're headhunted, which is a absolutely great feeling to have, I must say. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen again and just start through into the PowerPoints, and these PowerPoints will be available on the website. So not just another social media. Do we know, here's a quick random question, do we know who owns LinkedIn? Anybody know who owns LinkedIn? Again, you can put it into the chat. So Microsoft, excellent, using the share price name. So Microsoft only it's paid billions and billions of dollars for it, which is quite interesting because now we look at sort of the big tech companies, you know, we think of the FANGs, the Facebooks and the Amazons and all of those. They actually all have a huge social media. There's only one company that doesn't have a social media platform, and that's Apple. Although that's starting to change a little bit because I think when they start to look at Apple TV, what they're going to be doing is collating people together. You could almost argue that iTunes sort of was, but not to the extent that you have obviously with Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. So it is an interesting scenario. It's not just another social media. And what we're saying here is you're putting your information out there for other people. You're connecting with another network. And also part of that social media bit is that people can find exactly what it is and what you're doing. So what I want to do now is just start with a quick poll. So I'm going to So you've all got LinkedIn. What I'd like you to do is in this quick poll, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your LinkedIn profile? Okay, it's interesting. Got a 1. Do something about that today. 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, and a couple of 10s and a couple of 9s, which is good. Okay. Now, one of the things that becomes really interesting is that where it becomes really interesting about LinkedIn is that it's continuously changing. You're always going to get different viewpoints of what's going on. Everybody will have their own opinion of what's going on. So a little bit of background about me. My name's Joe Shami. I've been with Oxford College of Marketing, which is quite scary. I think I've been about 17, 18 years working with the Oxford College of Marketing. I studied Masters in Information Systems. I did my diploma in marketing, there's a DIPM, and I've also got an MBA. I've been a general manager for a management consultancy firm. I have my own consultancy. I've also had a property business in the south of France, which isn't doing very much at the moment, to close that down. I'm a senior lecturer at Coventry University in London. I work with obviously Oxford College of Marketing with CIM on postgraduate and undergraduates. And as I said, I've been doing that for very many, many years. So it looks like the majority of people would give themselves a 7 out of 10 in their poll. Okay, which isn't too bad. If you think about 70, that's a merit, a distinction. And what we're going to do is to see whether we can add any value. And those of you who got 9 and 10, if after at the end of today, and you go through it, and you actually look at it and go, well, actually, I'm all right. And you're doing a little bit of due diligence. If there's anything that you can take from there, again, my advice is take some notes down. Be really, really useful. If you know it, that's fine. If you don't, you go, okay, let me just have a little view from that perspective and maybe update and do it that way. The other thing as well that's really interesting is that LinkedIn can help with your resume. And I don't know if any of you know this, that there's a really interesting tool, because obviously this is now linking LinkedIn with Word, which now ties in quite nicely, as you were quite rightly saying, with that linked with Microsoft. So Microsoft have got Word. You now have a button on your LinkedIn, and I'm just going to show this to you, hopefully. And again, can you just tell me if you can see the screen of the video on screen that says Amy Owens? Okay.
No, can't see that.
Yeah, that's the problem. You think it's on the screen and it's not. Okay, so let me just stop this share. Hold on a second. So I open it out. Where's it gone? So do you see that screen now? Amy Owens? Yes, no? I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that on the screen?
Yeah, we can do now.
Can you hear anything?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see that on the screen. That's
There is no audio.
okay. Thank you for telling me. Okay. Okay. I will tell you what I'll do, just in case you can't get it. I'll put it in here. So this really is a really useful. So I've put the link in there. I actually did set it up so it was running, but like all good things. Hold on, let's have a look. So, okay, this now hopefully will work.
Amy is looking to improve and update her resume.
Still no audio?
Now when Office 365 subscribers open a resume in Word, you can use Resume Assistant powered by LinkedIn. You'll be able to discover examples of work experience descriptions and get inspiration. Resume Assistant pulls a recent job title
got
from
audio.
your
Thank you,
resume,
Hannah.
in this
That thumbs
case,
up from
Senior
Hannah.
Brand Manager, and then you can add the industry that you're looking for. The examples come from LinkedIn public profiles, and you can narrow this search by top skills if you want. Reading these descriptions, you can find keywords and spot trends to help your resume stand out. All these examples list how many clients they work with, so that's a good thing for Amy to add to her resume. Tap Read More to expand the text. Need more samples? Get a direct link to more on LinkedIn. Amy can find and connect with other professionals in her field and get insights about the role. Let's head back into Resume Assistant and look at top
Is
skills.
it working okay?
People in this role highlight these
Is it?
skills in
Got
their
sound?
LinkedIn profiles.
Barry, you got
So
sound?
if Amy has any of these, she should add them to her resume. Or perhaps if she's looking for more training, these fields would be a great place to start. You'll find articles from LinkedIn to peruse. And of course, you can find job listings on LinkedIn tailored to your role and industry. Look for a new job or just examine these job listings for relevant information employers are looking for so you can add them to your resume. And let recruiters know you're open to new opportunities with this feature on LinkedIn. If you're just getting started with a resume or want to check out the tool, go to Review, Resume Assistant.
Okay. So, what did you think? Anybody seen that before? It's really, really powerful and really, really useful. And that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at when we go through the scenario of what we're doing at the moment. Okay. So let's go back into the PowerPoint, as this will give us a little bit of structure. Right, let's just share the screen with the PowerPoint. I'll keep it open like that so it's a little bit easier to see. So when we look about your LinkedIn profile, the whole idea is, and that's why if we go back to how you were ranking it, does it clearly say and present you? Does it say who you are, what you do? This is why we were saying this is all about your brand personality, your personal branding. Is it a real recognition of your skills? And more importantly, your values, and more importantly, your passions? Is it credible? Does it showcase your brand? Does it tell you of the story that you're trying to put across? That becomes the most important thing. And one of the things that we know is that you actually want a better LinkedIn profile. It's hence the reason why you're all here. Gives you looking at new career opportunities, stand out from others. So again, it's a point of difference that you want to be doing. And it's a really useful way of marketing. We'll see that from the statistics, and any statistics I give you are probably well out of date. Everything is changing so quickly. And obviously you're wanting people to come to you, but you're obviously going to go to them and look for opportunities out there as well. And again, it's all about creating conversations, which is why it brings that back into a social media context. And most of the things we're looking at is increasing your connections and stand out and get that high quality job. So why LinkedIn? So we're saying it's got about 600 million users. As I said, that's changing all of the time. Adding 2 new users every second. 98% of recruiters are using it. And I know I get some really random where I'm talking even to a supplier. The supplier's trying to sell me something. He's looked me up on LinkedIn. So again, it's not just a passive thing. It's quite an active thing that we're looking at. And what's really interesting is when we look at ATS, which is a very American system, it's an application tracking system. So when we think about the first person who's going to read your resume, it probably isn't a person, it's a tracking system. It's looking for keywords and so on. So that's why even if we think about, that's no different from when someone's looking at a profile, they're going to be doing a search engine. So it's almost like a tracking system that's looking for you and no different. So it aligns with Google. So you need to be getting your profile optimized is what you're going to be looking at doing. Increasing your number of connections, improving those, find jobs. 30 million companies are online already. And there's lots and lots of job listings. I don't know if you've looked at job listings on them. They're quite fascinating to see that I didn't see these advertised, especially when you're looking at particular sectors. What becomes quite clever is it picks up from what you've written and finds jobs related to you. And again, becoming a thought leader, becoming an expert, a way of pointing yourself out. There's a link of where I got those statistics from, Omnicore Agency. So again, you can see and keep that up to that. Okay, we know that 58% are looking at LinkedIn profile. And what's interestingly enough is most of it's on a mobile system. And again, it would be a good question to see, would you agree with that? Do you look at LinkedIn on your mobile or on a PC? Think about most recruiters in busy offices, they're moving, wandering around. So more than likely, it might be on a tablet, might be a mobile, not necessarily on a big screen. So think about that. Think about your summary as well. We're going to look at it in a minute. So the first 40 characters of the summary, like in a CV, they're looking at the headlines. Someone reading a CV probably takes about 10 seconds to look at it. Probably no different when we're looking at a profile on LinkedIn. Doing direct search, and again, we've got to be careful applicant tracking system. So the first question I'm going to ask you, and again, it would be really interesting to see from all of you, have you customized your LinkedIn URL? Because what tends to happen is that with the URL, it actually puts in some random numbers in there. So the first thing you do is you can go in and edit it so you can actually make it with your name so it actually looks a little bit more professional. And I think that's the first thing. So I know sometimes when I look at resumes, when I see someone puts in as a point of contact their LinkedIn profile, and I know it's got 256 70 899, I go, you haven't customized it. So straight away, it's not a good sign. And it's not difficult to do. You just click on it and you can customize it through. So the other thing as well, you also need to check your settings. So again, make sure that your settings are public, your photo. It's really entirely up to you of what you are looking at. So where we're saying, are you looking for job applications? Let recruiters know you're open for opportunities. You've got to be doing that. You've also got to be turning around and going, do I want to share my photo? Not share my photo. I only share the photo with my connections or with anybody. So again, take a view, a sensible view. Again, like the government keeps saying, use common sense as to what makes it there. If you're looking actively, then you want to make things as publicly as possible. Again, just make sure that you haven't got anything that is, again, potentially embarrassing to you or your company that you might put up there. The other thing as well, obviously, if you're looking for jobs, you can put it up there, make everything public. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're looking for a job. So if you're employed already, you've still got it up there. You're not putting it there. One of the things that I would probably not say is actively seeking employment. That's almost a no-no that you would want to be putting that. And that's why it's sort of less is more from that perspective. So the other thing as well that becomes really important, like everything that we look at, is keywords. Okay, keywords are massively important. We know when we do search engine optimization, what are the keywords that people are searching on? So what we need to be looking at here is, how do we get all of those keywords in the right place? And one of the things that becomes interesting is, and again, you will hear a term called density. Density is quite a strange term. I heard it from, I did a LinkedIn learning, because they have a little learning module. It used to be Lydia, now it's part of LinkedIn. And one of them saying is they called it density. So where you have your keywords appearing everywhere. We know you're going to be putting it onto your resume, so what are the keywords in the resume? But keywords need to be in your summary, in your headline, in your skills section, that are relative to the job that you're looking for. That becomes really important. And the really easy way of doing this is to go and look at some job descriptions. Again, that's why that resume assistant in Word is really useful, because it's actually telling you, will tell you what those keywords are. Okay. And if you think about it, a recruiter is going to be searching for someone using those keywords. And it's like any search engine optimization, the more times you have the keywords, you're actually going to be going up the rankings. So your profile will come above everybody else's because you've repeated the keywords in the right place. Okay. So when we think about keywords, key phrases, again, it's quite difficult to do. So what I would recommend is get a whole lot of jobs, highlight those keywords, see what appears several times. And there's a little trick that you can do. Okay, there are going to be two types of keywords. And this becomes really interesting because keywords will be about your skill set. So one is about you, your personal traits. Okay, but the other is about the job. So supply chain management is a key word, because if I'm recruiting, looking for a marketing manager in supply chain management, one key word is marketing manager, another key word is supply chain management. So you've got to have both of those in equal, because they're looking at it from those two criteria. So one is going to be about a particular role, and one's going to be a generic action keyword. Okay, we'll look at some of those words a little bit later on. Okay, so again, I've put a LinkedIn here. Think about it from that perspective, and there's a little trick that I'm going to show you that becomes really, really interesting. So what I would do is go into either LinkedIn, look at jobs, go onto monster.co, whatever where you see jobs of what you're looking for, copy and paste them into something like Tag Crowd World, and this will create a word cloud. And I did a really bad one here. So I looked at a whole load of jobs. I copied and pasted 3 job specifications, and I think I picked pretty random ones. Whereas if I picked, I don't know, Facebook manager or ad manager or whatever it was, you would start to see the keywords that are coming through, and you can see straight away the keywords of marketing manager, business experience partner becoming quite clear, that what's happening is that the word cloud is generating some of the keywords that you should be using. Okay, so that's a really good trick. If you can't think of what keywords you are, cut and paste a whole load of job specs, put it into a word cloud. As I said, tagcrowd.com, there are lots of them. Pull it out, and then it will clearly identify what words you should be having in your profile. Now, the next thing that we need to be looking at is optimizing the top half of your portfolio, your profile photo. And I know sometimes I get a connection, someone sends me a connection request and there's no photo. I'm quite hesitant to accept. Okay. It also used to be the argument, should you put a photograph on a resume or a CV? My view is yes, you should. Some people say no, you shouldn't. Now we're saying, interestingly enough, in LinkedIn, you actually have to have a photo. Your profile is more likely to be viewed. Got some statistics. All statistics are made up. 98% of statistics are made up, including that one. So profile tends to be viewed more if there's a picture. You're more likely, 9 times more likely, to get a connection request if there is a photo. So the most important thing is when we look at a photo, and again, you'll here see this, it's not something from your Facebook. It's not something you standing in front of the Eiffel Tower on your last holiday that you went on. The whole idea is it's got to be industry specific. It's got to have a neutral background, or even the background of where it is that you're going to be working. So for example, if you're working in an office, maybe it's an office background. If you're working out in the field, it's a field background, whatever it is. You need to be dressing appropriately, and people say you should dress for the job that you want, not the job that you've got. Okay, high quality. My photo that you will see, I actually went to a photographer. I did the normal thing we all do, got a camera, shot 300 pictures, they were all okay. I went to a photographer in half an hour, he got me the photograph, and I'm just using that absolutely everywhere. I probably need to go back just to get it updated. Look at the camera, and again, it needs to be a close-up. Okay, so the whole idea is it needs to be recognizable. So if I'm sat back here, that's no good. It needs to be really close, so again, you can recognize it. Okay, it needs to see who you are. Okay, the other thing as well, what you will see on LinkedIn, and I'll show you my one, is that you've also got not just your photograph, but you've got an image behind your photograph. Have you updated that? Have you changed that, or is it the stock one that comes from LinkedIn? Okay, so do thumbs up, thumbs down if you've updated it or not updated the background behind your photograph. Okay, excellent. So the other thing as well, here's another little tool technique. Anybody used Photo Feeler? Again, put it in the chat, put thumbs up, thumbs down if you've used Photo Feeler. Now, Photo Feeler is really, really quite clever. Okay, so what you do is you just go into Photo Feeler. I've put the link in there, photofeeler.com. You upload your photograph, and then it looks at your photographs, runs it through algorithms, and turns around and says, and that's the photograph I got the photographer to do, and it's competent, likable, and influential. Okay, people then will comment on it more than likely, and again, I think that's about a week after, so if I go back, it should change over the time. So what it's saying literally here is, I've got a photograph, is it any good? Let's have a look. And what's interesting is, if I probably put another photograph with a bigger smile, maybe my likability might go up from 7.9 to 8.5, but maybe my influence might go down. So each photograph that you'll do will, on the sliding scale, will adjust and adapt as you go through. So a really useful thing to do, just to give you a little bit of due diligence, run your photograph through that and see what happens. The headline section, now again, do not leave it default, because what it will do is it will pick the first bit of your line of your work experience. Okay, marketing manager, not really good. You need to actually maybe put some keywords in there for the role that you want, how you're adding value to the world. So again, you need to be a little bit creative. What this is also showing is you've spent some time and effort, as you would do on your resume, you spent some time and effort on this headline section. So here is, I've just got a couple here, graphic designer, specializing in logo design and personal brand awareness, creating high performance office environments. So again, what you're, the benefit you're going to be giving to someone that's going to be employing you. It's not just the title. Sometimes the job title becomes really important. Especially if you're shifting across ways. So if I'm a graphic designer in one company and I want to be a graphic designer in another company, yes, graphic designer seems to be the most appropriate thing, because a recruiter is going to be looking for a graphic designer. So that keyword is going to be up there, but then it's got logo design, brand awareness. So I'm a graphic designer, again, bringing in different keywords. The about section used to be called the summary, and then it's been changed. As I said, everything changes. And summary means it was quite short. And what's interesting in the research that I've done, and I've used lots of YouTube, because there's lots of influence out there, people trying to sell you, that they'll write you your LinkedIn profile for you, just as people will write your resume, your CVs for you. Everybody says something different, okay? So you've got to take on board what you feel most comfortable. The about section is probably the hardest for people to write. I would say this is your elevator pitch. This is your 60 seconds, tell me about yourself, okay? Again, you need to have keywords in here, because again, we're trying to get that density, pull you out. Keyword phrases, short, simple paragraphs. When I look at some of them, it's just a wall of words. So break it up, lots of white space. People will scroll down if it's interesting. If it's just a whole lot of that, I'm not going to be able to read it. So again, use some of your graphic design. 2 or 3 paragraphs, you might even put headings, subheadings, bit of subtitling. Again, no different from what you're doing in assignments. When you're doing an assignment or even a report, you've got headings to signpost what it is that you're talking about. The about section, not totally different to potentially your resume, your CV, your work experience. This should be in the first person. This is about you. This is you connecting, of showing who you are to the world. So no problem in writing in the first person here. The other thing as well is at the bottom of it, put your contact details. So put your email, your phone number, whatever you're comfortable with. You can also put links into external media, to maybe a YouTube, a blog, whatever you have, because again, don't forget, they might not go below. They're just going to be looking at the about section. So you're putting as much in there as possible to attract. Again, we're going back into the fishing analogy. Okay, putting contact details is quite important, because maybe they don't Where else is it? It's going to be quite difficult. This becomes really easy. Look at About You, copy paste it, now I can just send you an email, inside or outside of LinkedIn. The About section differentiates you from others. So again, look at what other people are doing in that sector, what are they writing, and improve upon it. You're building your brand through here. So again, you've got stories in here. So again, it's not just the resume does the resume. That tells me your work experience. This is a little bit about you. Put it through there. Maybe looking at your skill set. So again, we're linking that back into the skill words that you've got. And even you might have some recommendations a little bit from a teammate, top brand characteristics. So your values, your skills, what are you passionate about? Okay. A way of filling that out, it's no different from that horrible question at an interview is tell me about yourself, is there are tools that you can do about brand personality. So if we think about that for yourself, your personal brand personality, what words would you use to describe me? What is it that says you can count on me? Again, about giving you credibility and reliability. As I said, it's your elevator pitch. It's your 60 seconds of where you're able to sell yourself as much as possible. Okay, it's who you are, what you do, why your work matters, and the contribution and impacts that you would make. Answering those questions makes a very strong sales document. This is a selling document. Then we go down into the next bit is the experience section. This again is a sales page. Most people cut and paste their resume in here. It's not a Wikipedia. So again, if you think about a Wikipedia, here's the breakdown of my life, that's not really selling you very well. The other thing that's really important is you've got your, obviously your title, your job title, and the company that you work for. Put the logo of the company next to it, okay? The reason why I say that is the recruiters, because they've paid for a premium, when they put their mouse over the logo of the company, it comes up with information about the company. So what that means is they know what you're doing, but also they have a bit of an idea of the company you work for. They want to know more, click on it, and it takes them to that company's LinkedIn profile section. Okay. So again, think about your listing your positions of your company, go through that, and again, use paragraphs, keywords, again, coming back through there. Don't just copy and paste it, you can change it a little bit. Some people will say, again, you can personalize a little bit more. This is a lot more of a connection. There's much more emotion in your work experience that you would get in a bit of paper on a CV. The other thing that's really, really important, and that's the same in most resumes and CVs, every time I look at one, I can probably say 90% of the time, I will go, it just tells me what you did, but not how well you did it. So give me some statistics, give me some measurables. I increased sales by 20%. I reduced the time factor by 3. Put in some sort of measure. So I increased Facebook followings from 10,000 to 40,000. And again, either use that as a percentage, put that numbers in. Don't just tell me what you did, tell me how well you did it. That's the selling bit here, okay? Can be a bit more subjective, maybe use a little bit of difference. And again, when we look at your skills and endorsements that you might have in here, add the skills from the job description. And again, we'll look at that when we go down into the skill section. There's a feature bit as well. So here, I know Red did a section on content. This is no different. So what we want to be using here is in that feature, you're uploading like you would do on your Facebook, you're posting things all of the time. So what sort of things should you be posting? Your work experience is not changing from day to day. Your about me is not changing from day to day. So how do I get that I'm changing bits and pieces that goes up the search engine, that goes up to my network of saying, hey, this is something that's interesting. So again, I've got a lot of this ideas from Professor Austin, who does a really good YouTube, but I would strongly recommend you having a look at her YouTube. She came up with these 6 things, which are really, really quite clever. Inspirational message, an industry-related news, articles and blogs, which you can use through LinkedIn publishing, okay, or any blogs that you've gone, so you can have them. Remember, the whole idea is if you put a blog in LinkedIn, you got the search engine just as you would do on your websites. Simple how-to list of things, something you've learned, something you've done, all of those things. Photo updates. So again, here's a clue. If you're going to get some photographs taken with a photographer, get a variety of ones. So again, you've got a carousel of photographs that you can keep updating and putting them as neat. Something you learned on the job, a new course that you've done, anything on those lines that is about content. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple that she recommends and shows. So if we think about here, in that feature section, what performs well is posts with good visuals. No different from anything else. It's not about the words. The words is in your about summary. Here is a picture. Here is something there. How to and lists. So we just did a poll. That would be really useful. Here's a poll on a scale 1 to 10. You can put that onto your features, send it out to your network. Hey, quick question, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rank this? And again, you're doing this in social media. Look at this as doing exactly the same thing. Okay, yes and no posts. Posts that tell a story. So what did you do this week? Okay, and one of the things that we're looking at, again, a post could have 5, 7, 9 headings. It's really up to you. Okay, and then think about 40 to 49 characters per article. So again, if we look at scenarios here, you can turn around and say views, no different from YouTube. That's why we're saying this is exactly no different from when you're looking at YouTube. How many likes, how many responses are you getting, how many views are you getting? Your job is to get as many views on your LinkedIn profile. Okay, iImage, maybe you're going to be using Canva. Interview comments that said, do strongly recommend. She is really, really good. She talks a lot of sense, but like all of these, people contradict. You take on board what you want to take about. Personal updates, milestones, inspirational message, quite like that. What do you want to be when you give up? Little cartoons bit. I know we're doing that on our WhatsApp with my colleagues. We're sending videos, we're sending funnies to everybody, and we're actually using WhatsApp not just as a communication tool, but as a social media tool. And we are getting some quite hilarious cartoons and TikToks in any one of those. A good story, again, you can put that through. But the whole idea is you need to be building meaningful relationships. So before you start networking, create a really strong profile, okay? Find the right connection. So what we say is you invite strategically and you just accept whoever, okay? The other thing that becomes really important, and I get this all the time, I just get a connection request and it's the standard one. So we need to personalize it. And you also then need to be asking for introductions, and we'll look at that in a while. So you want to connect with lots of people. So straight away, some of you have lots and lots of connections. Lots of people are coming to you. It's really just depend. But one of the things that you need to do is to personalize it. And you need, like anything, that's why sometimes we put things on our resume. We put our hobbies, activities. One of the things I put down is tennis. So why wouldn't I do that if I'm looking at someone that I want to connect with and I can see, oh, I notice you play like me. And that's the bit is like me, because people do business with people that are like them. People like people who are like them. Hi, I notice like me, you like to play tennis. I also notice we share a lot of the same connections. Would you mind if we connect on LinkedIn? That's far better. It's not brilliant, but it's far better than the standard one, which shows me I haven't even thought about it. It's a bit like a cover letter. It's a template. Also, if you want to connect to a recruiter, so maybe it's someone in a company, so the first thing that you would need to do is follow that company. So if you've got a dream job, then that becomes really important. And then you actually want to try and connect with people within that company as much as you can. Because again, if you think I'm working in HR, I'm looking and I've got Eva on the screen, so I'm going to use Eva. Sorry, Eva, my apologies. So I'm looking at Eva, and I can see that she's already connected with 4 or 5 people within my company. So why wouldn't I reach out to her? She's already part of it. And we know headhunting within organizations where companies are paying bounties when you recommend people, this is doing the same thing, but also quite surreptitiously. So think about connecting with other people in other companies. Okay, customize your request that's relevant to the job, why you're impressed by the company, what you admire about them. Okay, don't use the standard template. Okay. Other thing as well, and that's why I'm saying when they're looking at you, so if I go onto Eva's LinkedIn profile, I will actually see, if I'm a recruiter and I've got the premium version, it will actually show me whether you're connected to other employees. Okay, so that's part of the strength of LinkedIn, is that you've got all that metadata that you're not realizing the recruiter's having access to. The most important thing, if you're doing this to the recruiter, is that you've got to have an updated cover letter and your CV's ready to go. Because if they connect you, you know, that's brilliant, can you send me your CV? And you go, oh, I've got to update that. I've been spent too much time doing my LinkedIn. An introduction. So maybe I want, you know, Bob, hi Bob, I noticed that Sally is one of your connections on LinkedIn. Would you mind introducing us? I would love to connect with her about a potential positioning available in our organization, your organization, whatever it is. So again, think about being proactive, polite, not pushy. And again, if you don't ask, you don't get. The other section that you can come down to is licenses and certifications. I sort of had a look at that and I think, oh, I haven't got anything. In fact, I put a couple in yesterday. And volunteer experience, fill them up. Okay, don't go overboard on these. Stick to the facts. And again, try and think if you can get some keywords, because there's always a little bit of a description. Remember that density of keywords. We're trying to get up that search engine scenario. Shows your values, becomes really important. And also, it shows who you are as a professional. Okay, and what we're seeing is the license and certificates is showing that you're doing continuous professional development. You're continually learning, and it could be absolutely everything. If you're a first aider, here's my first aid certificate, because again, that's something companies need to have. So keep it up to date and keep going and put in as much in that's relevant that's in there. The skills section. So I'm going down in order of your LinkedIn profile. So the skills section, create a list from the job descriptions. You'll be able to pull out the skills because they will tell you, here are the skills. Remember, skills are essential and desirable. So if you think about a job spec, pull those out. Again, word cloud, suddenly these become skill keywords. Prioritize them. So in that skills section, order them in your order of priority. Okay? And then try and get an endorsement for each skill. So say, for example, Barry, I don't know what you do. Can you tell me quickly what you do? Okay, I've unmuted you. Barry, what do you do?
Yeah, marketing manager for an engineering company.
So you work in an engineering company, you do what sort of marketing management, what type of skill sets do you do?
From strategic through to operational and communications.
So communications, what's that? Digital, exhibitions, conferences?
Yeah, all of it, all of the digital and exhibitions offline.
So if we look at something like exhibitions, that will be in your skill set. So get an endorsement for that skill set. Maybe even get a recommend. If you're then looking for in events, coordinated events, whatever, maybe you got that recommendations 10 times, which again gives density. So 10 people, and that's social proof, 10 people who aren't related to each other have said that Barry's really good at running exhibitions. And I, as a recruiter, go once, twice, 10 times. That again gives you a real credibility, real gravitas in that area. Keep them updated. Skills are changing all of the time. So, for example, how many of you have got Zoom in your LinkedIn profile on your resume? How many of you got Teams? It's really interesting when at the university I'm working in, and that came out on WhatsApp. How many of you updated your resumes to say you're now doing online teaching? Because guess what? In the world of education, the new world of education, that's going to be hugely important. And I can see people go, oh yeah, but everybody's saying, no, you're putting it in there. I'm doing Zoom, using Teams and so on. Ask for recommendations becomes really, really important. And again, find colleagues that are working with you, upstream, downstream, people. If you're doing a course, a lot of you are doing CRM courses, get recommendations from each other, because again, you're working virtually. So if you're working, you're doing, I know, brand management, I'm just doing that next week. So all those students that are on that brand management course, they should be getting recommendations from each other. They should be connecting with each other. Because if I'm a recruiter, I don't actually know that you actually did that as a course that you're doing. I'm just looking at, here's a recommendation from Eva and Barry who are on a course. Okay. And again, in that skills section, put them in your headline. And I've looked at here again from LinkedIn, because from my university I actually get into LinkedIn Learning, so I have free access to it. So I pulled some of these out. What skills does the workforce value most? It's going to be changing. Okay, that's why 2020, 2019, 2021, all of this will be changing. And so here we can see, here are keywords that we need to be putting in. And sometimes even LinkedIn will say, don't use these keywords because they're too cliched. So keep your eye out what's working and what isn't working. Top 10 most in demand skills: blockchain, go figure, cloud computing, analytical reasoning, artificial intelligence, user experience, business analysis, affiliate marketing, sales, video production. You can see it's going up and down, and LinkedIn will give you this information. So if you go into LinkedIn, go into Proving, go into the help section, they want you to be using LinkedIn. It's in their interest to do it, because the more times you use it, it's all about engagement, the premium that people are paying for. And who are you following? So what's interesting here is it's going back into almost that skills section that you're going to be having in your resume, in your CV, the skills section, the activities, and this is telling you a little bit about you. So who are your influencers? So are you following Richard Branson? Are you following Seth Godin? Who are the books, the authors? How are you learning, and who are your role models? That becomes really interesting. So look at the influencers bit, because you have tabs on the top of the screen. So one will be about influencers. So again, think about the most appropriate, and this could be industry specific. So if it's in engineering, find me some engineering people, whether they're architects, consulting engineers, civil engineers, whatever it might be, that we can see. If I ring up, or pick up new civil engineer, who is in all the features in there, who are the authors and writers and so on. What are the groups? And you should join lots of groups, because again, groups are in there. Are you interacting them? Are you sharing content with them? Because then you're learning from the influencers and you're learning from the groups. And then what companies are you following? Okay, so for example, if I want to work, I'll give you an instance, I used to work for Atkins. If I want to work for Atkins, I should be following Atkins. Recruiter from Atkins is going to look at my profile and he goes, who are you following? You're not actually following our company. So you're not really that interested in our company because you're not following us. When you write in your cover letter, you go, I'm really interested in working for you. You're not that interested to be following me though. So again, that's why you've got that audit trail that's really clear here. And again, there's a schools bit. So what schools are you doing? So we've got Oxford College Marketing, universities, whatever you might be doing. The other thing as well, that in LinkedIn, you've got job section. So you can use the search bar, browse the jobs that are presented to you. You can save these positions for later. What also is really interesting is, and I've done this several times, is apply inside LinkedIn. Don't just take it out and then apply outside. Do it within LinkedIn, within the ecosystem. Again, that makes it a lot easier. And specify career interest page, because you've got that on that profile. What is it that you're actually looking for? So you can push jobs to you that are relevant. Look at what others are doing in your area of interest and copy them. And again, top 3 skills on LinkedIn, what the employers are asking for, because you'll see that in the job section becomes really interesting. I got this checklist, again, another YouTuber that's going through, quite a useful of just going through the checklist. What's your headline like? What's your photo like? What about the about, the history, recommendations, endorsements, connections? So it's a quick going through that just to make sure that you're actually on board and doing everything there. There's another tool. I would certainly look at something like JobScan. So what happens with JobScan is that you can actually put in a job in one side of the website, and then on the other side, you can either upload your CV or your LinkedIn profile, and it actually does a job match. And actually then turns around and says, you're missing some of the keywords that they've got in their job. You need to update this a little bit. And you can see I've just done one here, and it's given me a results of my LinkedIn profile that I've put in. It's given me a top line approach. If I wanted more detail, then I'd have to pay for it, obviously. But the reality in there, it does say, oh, I've got a couple of ticks in there, so there's something I'm doing right in my LinkedIn profile, but there's a couple of things in here that I'm not doing quite so good. You might need to improve this. So it's called jobscan.co. Again, it's a really useful area to go to. Some tips, got this from another source. So again, here's another little shopping list. Maintain an updated profile. Be detailed about your existing goals, recent experience, revamp your headline, revamp it, strong network. Do the research that you're looking for on companies, on recruiters, on people. So you're going for an interview, you should be searching up about them, find out what it is about them. Use the advanced search, that will help. Alumni, so that's why schools and colleges are quite useful, because that's part of your network. If you're looking for a job in a company, maybe someone from your school, your university is already working there, you've got a connection in place. Networking is relevant, and again, think about it from that perspective. Don't just be a follower, and again, look at the professional groups within LinkedIn. So what I want you to do now is I'm going to just take you to Padlet. So if you want to click on the Padlet bit, so what I want you to do now is, this is coming towards the end, because coming up to the hour, I want you to write down 3 things that you're going to do immediately after the session. I've done 3 things that I'm going to do. Create a piece of content to share on LinkedIn, interact with 5 pieces, which could just be a thumbs up. And I need to change my background because I put a beach shot on there, probably not that appropriate as we're coming into summer. So if you go into, you should get into Padlet, and then all you need to do is just click on the plus button here, and then you can add something in there. So in summary, coming through, what are the 3 things that you're going to do to your LinkedIn? Because the whole idea, like any good training, you're going to go away from this, get back into another meeting. You need to be updating your LinkedIn as quickly as possible. What are the 3 takeaways that you've got from today's session? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to type it in. Can everybody get into the Padlet? Yeah, the links. Oh, hang on. I sent it to George. So you should see the Padlet link now in the chat. Let's see if that's working now. Excellent. And you can vote on things if you like or don't like them. Again, it's anonymous, so you're not being held accountable for this. So change LinkedIn summary. Update and prioritize your skills. And again, every skill, try and get an endorsement. So it's a skill that's really, really important for a job that you're going for. Okay, I've got this skill. getting endorsement. There's also a quiz. I don't know if any of you have done the quiz on there as well. What's really interesting, I just did. It's quite hard, but obviously it's a test, multiple choice test, which then would show that, yeah, I've got the skill, and here is some of the proof that you've done that. Yep. Check keyword density. Excellent. Tag crowd's really good. As I said, there's lots of them. Photofeeler, have a play with that. As I said, it's a tool. The about section, stuff the profile with relevant keywords, and post once a week. You're doing it on Facebook. Okay. Why wouldn't you be doing on it? You're doing it on Twitter. If you think you're tweeting something, why don't you tweet it as well on LinkedIn? Yep. And the other thing is, look at that LinkedIn, the CV assistant in Word. I think that would be the first thing I would probably do. And the other thing that also is really, really important, when you're adapting your LinkedIn, stop doing updates. Because what will happen is, I'll go into my LinkedIn profile, I'll change something, and then as I've changed something, it'll then broadcast that to my network going, hi, Joe's just changed something on his LinkedIn profile. Then I go back in and change something else. Hi, you've changed something again. So switch that off, update everything, switch it back on, and then they get it one and done. Okay. Yet more skills, ask people for endorsements. And don't forget, endorsements doesn't necessarily need to be, again, client related. Said you're working with fellow students, fellow colleagues, marketeers. They can endorse it. Even if you're doing things outside some of the activities, if you're part of committees or any one of those transferable skills, you're using a skill, whatever it is, in the Parent Teachers Association or down your golf club or your tennis club or wherever it might be, here's a transferable skill. Okay? That in itself is totally relevant. Don't just think this is about work, 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 work. Okay. Let's have a look. And also comments on other things, what other people are doing, something that you've seen. Again, keep it updated. You're going to be going up that search engine ranking as much as possible. Okay. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Yep, CV Assistant is in Word, but you might need to have Word 365, or is it called Microsoft 365? And what's interesting is if you load your CV into Word, that's when the tab comes up. It's quite clever. As soon as you do it, boom, up it comes, and that's how it works. Okay. Any questions that anybody might have, if you want to put in the chat or just go through? As we come to the end. Anybody got any questions? The preferred background, it comes back down to probably industry specific. You don't want something that's, again, it's quite a difficult one. You want something that supports who you are, whether it's something that's quite, if it's a creative job you're going for, then maybe you want something quite creative. And that becomes really, really important. Okay. And I put something up. I think I took it from my picture of my last holiday. I'm thinking, do I want that up there? It's good for me. and if you go on it, you'll see it. It's just a beautiful beach in the Caribbean with 2 empty sunbeds. And I'm going, yeah, Billy, no mates. Going, that's where I am at the moment. But you can always keep changing it. It's not, it's like a CV, a job advert. If it doesn't work, change it. Oh, I've sent my CV out. I haven't got any interviews. Something's wrong with your CV. Change your CV. What's header? I think, again, depending if you're a marketing student, then you want something within marketing. If you've got professional experience, you've done internships. I have lots of students that do internships, and I go, don't put internships. You are not an intern. You're doing a proper job. You're just not getting paid for it, or you're doing it as an internship. And the reality is internship will be in your work experience, but certainly up there, yeah, you're a digital marketeer, whatever it might be. Yeah, you can ask for endorsements as well as recommendations directly on LinkedIn. Just put it through, and again, then create a template. So what I would do is when you write your template, when you're wanting to send anything out, do that in Word, keep a copy of it, and then you can cut and paste it in. Don't just use the stock one. And again, don't be scared of asking for endorsements from people. Sometimes if you don't ask, you don't get. But also bear in mind, you've got to get the timing right, not when they're busy, when they're in a good mood, whatever it might be. And I know when you do that, when you send out, questionnaires to clients, you don't send them out when they've just had a catastrophe. You send them out when they're going to give you a good feedback. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. As I said, YouTube has got loads and loads and loads of things. And if you go on to LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, any one of those, you'll start to see that there's a massive amount of information out there. And LinkedIn are pushing stuff out there as well. So it's continuously changing. Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope you all will have a good afternoon. Stay safe and wash your hands.